one of the key takeaways for me was really to organize and to continue the dialogue with all the main stakeholders who have attended the conference. I think it's important to have a RAID conference, and it's excellent in that sense that we are able to gather for 2 days and discuss these important issues. But what I like about it as well is to be able to continue the dialogue and until we meet next year to see how much progress we've done in the different topics we have been covering today.
It's been a phenomenal discussion. Sometimes I almost got upset how complicated these discussions are, how formalistic and how legalistic sometimes we go into the debates. Yet companies, startups in Europe need really clarity, they need simplicity, and they need very certain advice and direction in how to adopt these new technologies. So we need to be much more agile. We have to be more courageous in how we interpret the principles of data protection and other digital regulation to enable responsible innovation. And I think it's that courage and that accepting the risk, and that things will not be always perfect, but knowing that at the end we'll get the right outcomes.
First thing is, being a consultant, and I'm closer to the business side of things than the regulation side of things, and just hearing why some regulators act the way they do, why the EU does what it does, and where it's coming from, was quite enlightening, because I would have never seen it that way. So getting a slightly different perspective than I'm used to, I think is the number one thing. In terms of the actual content of the discussions, it just comes back to reinforce how different the different industry sectors are going to be with this going forward. I heard quite a few talks on life sciences, healthcare, medical devices. Again, my background is financial services, so I hadn't fully appreciated the sorts of challenges that they are going to face and they are facing. Of course, a lot to learn from each other, but at the same time, it's going to be a different world based on where you're coming from and where you work. So I think that difference in sector perspectives, along with some overlaps and some cross-learnings, I think was one of the biggest takeaways I had. And finally, I'd say this is, it all comes back to when we distill down all the conversations, at the end of the day, most of it is about better outcomes for the customers. And that was a common theme, where, if you just pare back what the legislation is trying to do, what the implementation of the act is trying to do, what the innovators are trying to do, what the startups are trying to do, everyone is trying to solve the customer's problem. So at the end of the day, we all have that common reason for being, which is a great thing. And for me, it was quite reassuring that everyone was thinking about it the same way.
So one of my key takeaways from the panel I did yesterday about misinformation in the digital age was that this is a huge problem that exists and is increasing, and is misinformation, and when it turns into disinformation, is actually having very real impacts on people both in Europe and beyond. And there are no obvious solutions. There are people making efforts, the platforms are making efforts, governments have ideas, there are initiatives, but in the end it's about the coming together of stakeholders to tackle this issue in particular. Requires multi-stakeholder engagement, and actually quite urgently, and I think that there is a bit of a absence of any one or thing driving those stakeholders together. So the panel left me with a sense of urgency about misinformation and disinformation, a sense that the different actors all wanted to do what they can, but none was really empowered to do anything on their own, so needed to come together, and perhaps there's a lack of coordination of how they might do that. So it made me think, well, how could that gap be filled?
The dialogue has to continue, that we, all of us, I think all the stakeholders in the process have to perhaps step down from our respective soapboxes and roll up the sleeves and sit together around the table and find common solutions, find common interpretations and common ground, and how to move forward, not just for Europe's sake, but in terms of how we make this work for also the global south, for instance, and amongst partner nations, but also exporting our thinking further.
I am following internet AI issues through readings and meeting people, and my principal takeaway is, first of all, the feeling that we are still in an evolving system. Frankly speaking, before, to attend some panels, I was thinking that things are more or less set up, fixed. But it's not the case. There is still a lot to discuss and a lot of problems to be fixed. The first point. Second point is, if you consider officials, private companies, NGOs, so and so, there are not so much a ditch between them, because there is a common will to work together and to have, at the end of the day, a practical and effective solution for responding to the big challenges of new technologies and especially of AI.